2, 1, live. Man, I'm so happy to meet you, really. I think
Likewise.
I read your first book, I mean, a long time ago. When was the first book?
First book was in 2012. I started, and it was published in 2014.
Wow. Yeah, it was, I mean, almost 10 years ago. Amazing. And
Yeah.
what do you think? I would love to have your opinion about what's going on with this ChatGPT, because it's very interesting. On one side, is interesting from a product point of view, the user interface, just this chat that suddenly clicked and everyone using it, and talking about and the implication of AI also. I was curious about your opinion.
So I've been playing with it nonstop since I
Right.
could get my hands on it, and it's amazing. I mean, it's suddenly, uh, it's a little threatening to people like me who write books for a living, because suddenly anybody with a good idea is just as good, if not better, an author than I am. So I need to adjust accordingly, because what I do is now not rare anymore. Like literally, if you've got, it used to be, a lot of people I talk to, they say, "Oh, I dream of writing a book someday, and I've got some really good ideas." And when I talk to them about their ideas, a lot of people really do have some great ideas stuck inside their heads. It's just getting it out there, right? It's sitting down and writing the book, and doing the hard work of every day, grinding away. And so what ChatGPT has done is essentially democratized the hard part of writing, which is the actual putting, words into the computer. Because now you can just say, "Hey, I have an idea about such and such. Write an outline for a story or for a TED talk or whatever," and it will give you a pretty darn good first draft. The first draft is always the hardest part, and so now you can do that in seconds.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think often people, maybe, I don't know, overestimate human beings, because when I talk with friends that are not in the tech sector, they say, I spoke the other day with a psychologist, friend of mine. She's a psychologist. She's very good. And I say, I mean, did you try ChatGPT? And she said, come on, I mean, ChatGPT. And I said, look, let's do a test. I mean, I don't know. I have no
Yeah.
idea. Okay, I'm not a psychologist. Tell me one patient of yours, and I try to give you an answer. All right, and so she gave me this detailed description. What would you do with the patient, so and so? Like, she was very precise, and I just click, and then I say, look, this is what I don't know if it's good or not. And she read the message and said, oh, I just lost my job. Like that, it was so
Yeah.
impressive. And it's
Yeah.
still, a sort of prototype. So I don't know. I really don't know
Yeah.
how will it play out.
I think who knows, right? Who knows? It's a very, very powerful technology. I think that there is a small chance it's bad, and there's a very good chance that it's wonderful, and probably it'll end up somewhere in between. I'm a
Right.
techno optimist, and I think the only way to go forward is to learn how to adapt to these tools, and so all of us will need to adapt our present conception of reality. We're not going to fight this. It's not going, I mean, you can't put a stop to it. It's too late. The technology is already out there. And so what we need to do is to learn how to use it effectively so that it benefits all mankind. And I think it certainly has the potential to do that.
From a product design point of view, Nir, but what's your opinion about it? Because AI has been around for a long time. I think, I mean, Google, DeepMind, I mean, and then ChatGPT arrived with the super simple, chatbot interface, and boom,
Mm-hmm.
suddenly is everywhere. What's your take on that?
Well, I wouldn't actually call ChatGPT an AI. I have difficulty with that terminology, because AI, when people think of AI, they think of general artificial intelligence, making something that is as conscious as we are. And that's not what ChatGPT is. ChatGPT is not a general artificial intelligence. It's a large language model. And what it's
Yeah.
doing is essentially predicting the next word that comes in a sentence, right? That's what it's really good at. And it turns out that much of what we do as humans in knowledge work is repetitive, is very formulaic. If you think about, the other day, my daughter's 14, and the other day she had a question on one of her homework assignments, and I was helping her with it. And the response had to be incredibly formulaic. It had to be a 5-paragraph essay. The first paragraph had to introduce the thesis, then 3 points backing up the point with evidence, and then a conclusion. It's incredibly formulaic. So ChatGPT, a large language model, is very, very good at replicating those type of patterns. So when you tell it, write a poem in the style of Shakespeare or whatever the case might be, it's really good at that, and it's very, very fast. So in that respect, I think it's amazing, and we should use it more, right? When it comes to sending 80-90% of our emails or typing up memos or whatever the case might be, it's going to be a lot of repetitive work that this can, I think, enable everyone to do much, much quicker. So I think overall it's great. Now, that does mean that a lot of people, I don't buy the argument that, it's going to put people out of work. I was kind of being facetious about my job. I think it's going to create a lot more jobs than it's going to destroy, but it will piss a lot of people off because we're going to have to change. And this, by the way, this is the mega trend of our lifetime, is that the pace of change is accelerating, right? That these things are cumulative. So we are all going to have to learn how to change our work patterns faster and faster. So if you're, in a job that previously said, well, I think I pretty much know what I need to do, and I just do the same thing every day, and you're in the crosshairs of a technology like a large language model like ChatGPT, you might have to learn some new behaviors, right? Your job might very well change.
Going back to your previous work with Hooked, do you think that these kind of products are sticky? Are they designed in a way that you want to keep using them, or they still lacking on that side? What's your professional point of view on that?
When it comes to ChatGPT specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does actually display quite a bit of examples of the Hook model. So Hooked, it was a book about how to build habit-forming products, and it's essentially how can we use these principles from consumer psychology to keep people coming back. And I think actually you can see quite a bit of the Hook model into the design. I have no idea, they probably didn't use the Hook model to build the product, but you do see these traits. The internal trigger, the reason you use the product is, you've got some stressful factor, something at work that you need to get done that is painful to do. The action is to open up ChatGPT. I have it right in my, I have a little bookmark right in my Chrome browser, so it's incredibly easy to use. I find that I actually use it about half the time that I used to use Google. Now I just go straight to ChatGPT. So the internal trigger can be curiosity, it can be boredom, it can be uncertainty. Any of these things that used to take me to Google, I'm now going to ChatGPT, and it does it a lot better. Not for everything, but for certain questions, it's really good. So the action is just to open the app, type in a query, and the variable reward, right? The real engine of the Hooked model is about the variability, the surprise, the uncertainty. And so, I mean, it's amazing. Almost every time I use it, I get a little giggle of like, oh my God, how does it do that? And so that's variable, right? There's an excitement there. Now, it's not always perfect, and that's actually not a feature. That's not a bug. That's a feature. That can actually be a good thing, that there is some kind of uncertainty. There is, if it was perfect every single time, I would argue that it wouldn't provide that same amount of variability that keeps us engaged, right? It's interesting to see, like, what does it get right? What does it get wrong? And then the investment, what's so amazing about a product like ChatGPT is that it does, the more you invest in it, the better it becomes. So you can keep your conversations open and come back to them later. So the other day I was doing some research for a book I'm working on, and I asked it a bunch of questions, and it collected a bunch of research for me. And then I could go back later and open up that same conversation. It still remembered everything I put in before. So that would be an example of the investment phase that makes the product better and better with use.
Yeah, that's a good point. You mentioned a new book. Your second book, I thought that on one side, it's a hard topic, being how to be focused, avoid distraction in this chaotic world. Also because you become the person that cannot be distracted. So you always have to be focused, So it's such a huge pressure, I think. So I was wondering if you stay on the same topic for your new book, or you say, enough, guys. I want to lose focus sometimes, I can't be always on.
Yeah. No, sometimes I have to watch myself when I'm walking in the streets, checking my phone. I have to be careful that I'm not giving off the wrong impression. But the book, actually, I'm joking here, because the book is not about not using technology. I'm actually a pro technology if it's what you want to do with your time and attention. So if what you want to do is use the phone, whatever, whatever it suits you, that's fine. What I want to help people do is make sure that they're using it in a way that serves them, as opposed that hurts them. And so, it's not an anti-technology book. I think there's a lot of books out there that say, "Oh, technology is melting your brain. Technology is hijacking your mind." That stuff is silly. I think it's not true, and it's not useful to tell people stop using your phone. Thanks very much, but I'll get fired from my job if I stop using my phone. We rely on these technologies. So to take advice from some tenured professor that's telling you not to use social media, not to use your device, is really not helpful for most people. So I really wanted a tech positive approach to all this. And then in terms of the next book, it's still too early to tell. I've still got a few
Got
years
it.
ahead of me. Typically, it takes me about 5 years per book to really
Wow, 5
do it well.
years.
So yeah, more well, Indistractable took me 5 years because I kept getting distracted. Uh, I had to. I write books for myself, right? I'm not. A lot of times people will write a book after they know something, and that's not my mo. Like the reason I write a book is when I have a problem, and typically when I have a problem, I write to solve that problem for myself, and I never share what I write. And then if I still don't know the answer, then I'll talk to a friend, I'll talk to my wife, I'll try and figure it out. If I still can't get to an answer I like, I'll read other people's books on the topic, all right? I'll see what other people say about it. And if those books still don't give me the answers that actually solve my problem, then I decide to write my own book. So the
Got
reason
it.
I wrote Indistractable is because I kept getting distracted by all sorts of things, right? I would say I was going to go to the gym, but I didn't. I said I was going to eat right, but I wouldn't. I'd say I was going to really focus on that project at work. I'm not going to get distracted. And yet I would do, check the news, just scroll social media, do everything but the thing I said I was going to do. And so that's when I decided I really had to figure out this problem of distraction for myself. And I spent 5 years. I really wanted to get into the research, not just like, oh, use this stupid tech hack or try this silly tactic, but really the deeper psychology behind why we get distracted. Because if you think about it, it's actually a really interesting question. Why is it that despite knowing what to do, we don't do it? Right?
Yeah.
Plato, the Greek philosopher, actually had the same exact question. Plato asked akrasia in the Greek, the tendency to do things against our better interest. 2,500 years ago, Plato was asking, why is it if we know what to do, why don't we do it? And that's the same thing we struggle with today. We all know what to do. Who doesn't know? You want to lose weight, you eat right, you exercise. You don't need to buy a diet book. That's the way to do it. There's no other way, right? If you want to have closer relationships with people, you have to be fully present with them, right? If you want to do better at your job, you have to do the work, especially the hard stuff that other people don't want to do. We already know. What we don't know is how do we stop getting distracted? How do we get out of our own
Mm.
way so we can do what we ourselves say we're going to do? And so what I wanted to do was to really empower people with tactics, with actual psychology research that shows them, you know what, you can do it. We need to stop blaming the technology, stop blaming Facebook for distracting us, and realize that the power is in our hands if we know what to do. And unfortunately, we don't teach this skill. Right? This is not something we learn in school.
Right.
And I think it's incredibly important and increasingly important because if you think the world is distracting now, just wait a few years, right? With virtual reality and augmented reality and artificial intelligence and who knows what else, the world is going to become increasingly distracted. So I really believe we are going to bifurcate. There's going to be two kinds of people in the world: people who let their time and attention be controlled by others, and people who say, no, I will control my time and attention because I am indistractable. So that's why I wrote this book.
I love it. I love it. Platone in Italian is
Mm.
is called.
It
It's
sounds better
interesting.
when
You
you
know
say
what
it.
is the interesting thing is at the beginning of this year, I've decided that every week I'm gonna learn something new. Okay, so I started to
Mm.
learn, I don't know, how to solve the Rubik's cube, um, improving chess, juggling. I don't
Mm.
know. I'm memorizing a deck of cards. Every week I do something new. Yesterday I did how to cook because I can't cook. Okay, so for the first time I went to a cooking school. And the interesting thing that I noticed about focus and distraction is that, and also I did VR for a week, not like 8 hours a day, but like 1 hour a day, maybe even more. For a week, I play VR, a table tennis game, because I was a professional
Nice.
table tennis player. So I said, all
Huh.
right, yeah, so there is 1 million players in this video game. What kind of ranking can I get if I play for 1 week? That was the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I end up, by the way, at number like 300, something like that. So pretty good. But
Yeah.
what I notice is that once you focus on something, so I don't know, juggling, then the feeling is like the phone. So every time I see juggling balls, I start to, or chess.com, and I start playing, like it's not really the technology, it's the psychology behind. There is something that trigger my behavior, and then I play, I don't know, 4 hours in a row chess, which is not
Yeah.
bad, but I
Yeah.
don't have control on that. I was wondering what's your feedback about it, that is not technology
Yeah.
related.
I'm so glad you said that, because you're absolutely right that the way I define distraction is not based on the things that people typically think distract them, right? It's not the technology, it's not, the things outside of ourselves. That really, to understand distraction, we have to go back to the root word, right? What is distraction? And the best way to understand what distraction is to understand what distraction is not. That if you look at the origin of the word distraction, comes from the Latin word trahare, which means to pull. And you'll notice that distraction ends in the 6 letters ACTION, which spells action, reminding us that distraction is not something that happens to us. It is an action that we take. So the opposite of distraction is not focus. The opposite of distraction is traction. Traction is any action that pulls you towards what you said you were going to do, things that you do with intent, things that move you closer to your values and help you become the kind of person you want to become. Those are acts of traction. The opposite of traction, distraction, is any action that pulls you away from what you plan to do, away from your values, away from becoming the kind of person you want to become. So I would argue any action that you plan to do in advance, whatever it is that you say you're going to do with intent, can be traction. And that can be social media, that can be playing video games. It doesn't really matter. We need to stop moralizing and medicalizing. Just because it's a new technology doesn't mean it's bad. Every generation freaks out about the latest technologies. They have moral panics about whatever latest technology, and it's silly. I guarantee you in a few years, people are going to say, oh, social media is nothing. Now we need to be worried about this next thing, right? Because we always panic about these kind of things. And I would say, conversely, what's even more important is to realize that anything can be a distraction if it's not what you plan for. So we say, oh, reading a book or playing chess or learning to juggle, that can be good. Yeah, but if you're doing it instead of what you plan to do, it's a problem, right?
Yeah.
So anything can be a distraction if it's not what you plan to do. Reading a book is very nice. But if it's taking away time from your family, from your son, if that's what you plan to do because you're trying to escape reality by doing something else, that can be an unhealthy addiction. I know people who exercise to escape reality. And this is really where we get to the heart of what distraction is all about. We love to blame stuff outside ourselves. Oh, it's the technology company's fault. Oh, it's this person's fault. Everybody's distracting me. But in reality, we know what studies find, and this is the really important part about what I discovered in the past 5 years, is that 90% of our distractions begin from within. 90%. These are called internal triggers. What are internal triggers? They're uncomfortable emotional states that we seek to escape. Loneliness, boredom, fatigue, uncertainty, stress, anxiety. If we are looking to escape those sensations, even with what other people say is a positive behavior, oh, you're so, you work so hard. Well, yeah, but if you're working to escape emotional discomfort, that's unhealthy. It could be a distraction.
Yeah.
So what we have to ask ourselves is, are we living our lives? Are we spending our time? Are we spending our precious attention in a way we intend or in a way that is serving as an escape? And what high performers do, what I learned in my study over the past 5 years of high performers, is that high performers also feel discomfort, right? Everybody feels discomfort, but high performers will turn that discomfort into traction rather than what many people do is that they try and escape the discomfort. They can't handle sitting alone for 5 minutes. They can't handle uncertainty or boredom or fatigue, and they look for escape. And so whether it's with too much news, too much booze, too much football, too much Facebook, it doesn't matter. You're always going to find distraction if you don't understand what you are looking to escape to begin with.
Do you think, Nir, that it's 100% achievable in the undistractionable world? I mean, is on a daily basis, do you find on yourself that you can realistically, have 80% you are focused, 20% is a distraction. So distraction is part of the
No.
overall, or is something that you can just avoid and exclude from your life?
So I wrote the book on how to become indistractable, and I will tell you that from time to time I still get distracted. But here's the thing. Here's the difference. An indistractable person knows why they got distracted, and they prevent it from happening again in the future. As
Right.
opposed to a distractible person keeps getting distracted by the same things. Paulo Coelho had a wonderful quote. He said, "A mistake repeated more than once is a decision." I'll say it again. It's so good. A mistake repeated more than once is a decision. So distractible people keep getting distracted by the same things again and again. Okay, how many times can we blame technology? How many times can we blame social media before we say enough? I'm going to do something. Right? Oh, these cigarettes, they're so addictive. The food is making me fat. Everything is somebody else's fault. I'm always a victim. Okay, when do you say enough? When do you say, I'm going to do something about it? Are you going to sit here and just let yourself be victimized?
Yeah.
Or are you going to do something? So distractible people keep making the same mistakes. And then they wake up 10 years later and they say, oh, I just wasted all this time not being the person I know I could have become. Whereas an indistractable person says, okay, I see what you did there. I got distracted, but I'm not going to let it happen again. I'm going to take steps today to prevent getting distracted tomorrow. And that's exactly what I show you how to do. What are those steps that you can take? And it's not that hard. Anybody can do it. You can take these steps right now to make sure it doesn't continue to happen.
Got it. I also think that probably the reaction time, as soon as you realize that you've been distracted, you much quicker to go back instead of, after 1 hour, you say, oh gosh, I was distracted. Let's go back. I'm thinking about, like the pro sport athletes, Nadal or Steph Curry, that they get sad, disappointed for something, but super quickly, boom, they refocus. And so probably that's also a good skill to
that's
have.
Exactly right. They can use that they feel the same way we do, right? They also get bored. They also get angry. They also get uncertain. They also get stressed, but they use that as rocket fuel to propel them towards traction as opposed to trying to escape it with distraction. Most people, when you look at low performers as opposed to high performers, low performers, when they feel uncomfortable, let me take a drink. When they feel uncomfortable, let me take a smoke. When I feel uncomfortable, let me turn on the news. When I feel uncomfortable, let me scroll social media. What high performers do is they use it to their advantage to propel them towards traction.
Is there any habit in these years that you built in your life that works really, really good, and you say, wow, that's fantastic? I'll give you an example. For me, I discovered, the Wim Hof method years ago. I do my cold plunge, and it's a great habit. It's something that, put me in the right place. And maybe for someone else is not good, and everyone has got different ones. But is it anything that you would recommend or that works for you? And you thought, wow, that was a really,
how often
really
do you cold plunge?
Every day, yeah.
Every day, okay. Is it hard to do?
No.
Does it cause
I hate
discomfort?
cold. By the way, I hate cold. But for several, when I moved here in UK 11 years ago, I was always sick, like always for, 4 years. And then I thought, I need to handle cold because I can't live like that. It's horrible. And it always rains here. There is no way to say, you can complain a lot, but it will rain. So there is no chance.
Right.
And so I started to study. I also interviewed Wim Hof, and I thought, wow, I like this method. It's free of charge. I love it. I'm Italian, so I thought there's no money involved. It's just cold exposure, gradually cold exposure, and breathing. Yeah. That's it.
No, so I'm very familiar with it. But I'm curious for you, is there any hesitation when you do it every day?
Yeah.
is it something you can do mindlessly, like as easy it is to walk down the
No,
block,
no.
or
Every day I
why
think,
not?
oh gosh, I have to go
Okay.
in. It's
Okay.
always like that.
This is important. This is very important because we, I think, have reached peak habit. What do I mean by that? Peak habit. In that we kind of preach this gospel that we should turn things into habits. And I think this can be harmful for people because when we use the word habit, what we mean is that we don't want to do the thing, we want to have done the thing. Okay. I don't want to cold plunge. I want to have cold plunge. I don't want to write my book. I want to have written my book. I don't want to exercise. I want to have exercised because doing the activity sucks. So why can't I just push this magic button and make it into a
Right.
habit? Right? The definition of a habit is a behavior done with little or no conscious thought. Well, what you just told me is that you can't cold plunge with little or no conscious thought. I don't know how to exercise with little or no conscious thought. If I want to
Yeah.
grow my physique, if I want to get stronger, I have to suffer. It's not something you can do with little or no conscious thought. If I want to write my book, let me tell you, this was freaking torture. It was really, really hard work, right? So you can't get
Because
into a
it was
writing habit.
previous than ChatGPT in here. That's it.
Exactly. So
I
the
was even like,
point here
click
is
a button and
that,
that's it.
yeah, maybe in the future, yeah. But the point here, maybe it will someday be a habit. But the point is that we we need to use our terminology correctly, because if we don't, it hurts people. And I'll tell you why it hurts people. Because people say, oh, I want to get into a writing habit or a meditation habit or an exercise habit. And they think if I can only build a habit, it's going to be easy. It's going to be effortless, right? That's what a
Yeah.
habit is, a behavior done with little or no conscious thought. That's the definition of a habit. Here's what happens. They try something for 30 days or 60 days or whatever, some arbitrary number, and they say to themselves, still sucks, still hard. I don't like it. And so what do? They say, I must be broken. And they're not broken.
Right.
It's actually this methodology that's broken. So what we have to do is to start separating habits from routines. Routines are simply a series of behaviors frequently repeated. But there's
Right.
no expectation that routine needs to be easy. And so we need to free ourselves from any kind of language that makes us want to avoid discomfort, because I think being able to harness discomfort is incredibly empowering. And I think that I'm going to be a little controversial here. That's why Wim Hof works. It's
Right.
actually, I believe, from the research I've seen, has very little to do with physiology. And we can argue and debate, but that's not the point. Okay, that's not the point. Personally, I believe that there's a lot more going on from the incredible effect of the agency of when you get into that tub, you say, I don't want to, and you do it frickin' anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
What you're
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
to
That's a good
yourself, the
point.
reason this has such a powerful impact on the way we feel, on depression, on anxiety, on all kinds of things, is because it's an amazing placebo effect. And I don't mean placebo in a bad way. Placebos are incredible. We should use placebos more. But the reason when you couple a placebo effect with a sense of agency and control is magical. That combination of placebo with agency, like doing something hard and doing it anyway through some process, that's the kind of resiliency we have to build in all aspects of our life. And so the reason I kind of bristle at the term habits is that I don't want people to expect work to be easy, right? We're so
Yeah, good
allergic
point.
to discomfort, right? Give me a pill. If I feel bad, I need a pill for everything, right? And if there's not a pill, then let me blame someone for why I feel the way I feel. And what I want people to do is to learn how to deal with discomfort in a healthy way, because once you do, then you become indestructible. Then you really harness this power. You can do anything. If you can sustain that discomfort long enough to do work of value, you can do anything.
That's a good point. Yeah, I will mind my words more carefully in the future. But it is really true. Also, because when you do the cold plunge or anything like things that I'm learning in this period, I couldn't play football. I hate football, and I say, all right, I need to learn keepy uppies. When you kick, and
Yeah.
I couldn't do one. That was my level, and I did like 97 in a row like that.
Oh
And
my
and
God.
when you finish, or like you finish a cold plunge, you think, well, I can do this. So your
Yeah.
your mind is in a different place.
Yeah.
So definitely, it's not
Yeah.
only, the call, everything.
You you asked earlier what I'm researching, and this is exactly what I've been diving into is the power of expectations. It's crazy. Like, if people knew how much impact your expectations have on your performance, uh, it would be the most powerful technique out there, right? That just by knowing what you that differential between what you expect to happen in reality, it's so empowering. And what kills me is when so many people, so many of us, I used to do this too, we kind of give up before we start, right? It's like Henry Ford said, whether you believe you can or cannot, you're right. And so many things in life, we don't even try because obviously I can't, right? But of course,
Yeah.
you're already sunk before, and this is what I see a lot when it comes to distraction and this problem of technology overuse. Is people kind of give up before they start. Oh, what, my kids, they're always on video games. Oh, what are you gonna do? There's nothing you can do. Our brains are hijacked. Well, no, if you believe that there's something you can do, if you believe you have agency, there's a lot we can do. And I think that's in all facets of life. By the way, you asked me earlier, and I didn't really answer your question around what routine. I would change it a little bit. What routine, because
Yeah.
it's not really a habit, have I adopted? One of the things that's most changed my life, there's many, many things. So there's 4 big steps to becoming indistractable. But one of the things that's super simple, anyone can do, and will change your life, is to schedule your day. Schedule your day. It's not a technique I came up with, but it is the most studied time management technique and the most effective that we've ever found in thousands of peer-reviewed studies. It's called setting an implementation intention, which is just a fancy way of saying planning out what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. So if you have trouble not living up to your potential, right? If you find, if you're perfectly happy in life, if you're retired or you're a child, don't listen to me. You don't need this. But if you find that
Yeah.
you're capable of more, if you simply sit down once a week and plan your day according to your values, not just work, right? A lot of people plan their work, but I want you to also plan time for yourself, right? Do you have time? If part of your values are to take care of your health, to read, to learn, to play video games, also fine. If you have that time in your schedule, to take care of others, right? Time with your family, time with your friends. We need that time in our schedule. And it turns out that if you plan your day, this is an incredibly effective technique. It sounds so simple, and people say, oh yeah, what's the big deal? It's freaking life-changing.
I love it. I love it. Going back to the expectation, let's say reality gap. I don't know how to define it. Anyway, the expectations that you have. What I'm noticing now is that in probably 10 hours, there is the 10,000 hours theory, blah, 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 Malcolm Gladwell. But what I noticed doing very simple things, trying to learn very simple things, not to become a master, a god of that, just to learn, with like 10 hours, sometimes it's like 5 hours, you become much better than 90% of the people out there, which is mind blowing for me. Like,
Yeah.
just because you learn a method and you act, and that's it, and it doesn't require to be a genius, and that's incredible for me, because I thought, wow, I don't know, the Rubik's Cube, I never thought I could solve the Rubik's Cube. I always thought, you have to be a mathematician. I don't know. And then I just learned the method, and in one day you can do the cube. You won't do it in 10 seconds, but you can do it. So it's incredible. It's not so much time to dedicate to do this incredible step.
I think with certain things, there's certain things that look hard and are actually not that hard, like magic. Okay, like when you do if a good magician, you look at the magician, wow, it's amazing. It must be magic, right? Like, because you just can't figure it out, and it's always disappointing when the magician actually shows you how to do it. You're like, oh, you just had the bunny was here as opposed to here. The pigeon flew out of there, or it's like when you reveal a trick, it always is disappointing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the Rubik's Cube, right? Like when you learn it, it looks hard, but it's actually not. Now it's very hard to get at elite level, and you're competing in a matter of seconds. That's a different story. But to basically solve a Rubik's Cube without time is not that hard. Now I'll tell you what kind of activities are very hard, and despite looking easy, are things that completely change your physical situation. So, for example, I got into the same
Marriage.
kind of mindset. Well, very good one. Yes, very good. much harder than it looks. I was gonna take a different direction, but you're absolutely right.
At
I
the end
went a
of the
few
day,
years
I
ago.
mean, you live with one other person in a house. Shouldn't be
Yeah,
hard. I mean, it shouldn't be.
yeah.
But
But yes, exactly. So mine was a little different, although now I might want to revise it. A few years ago, I really wanted to learn how to do a handstand. Okay,
oh,
a
of
free
course.
standing against not against the wall, like just be able to kick
No, no.
up
Like I
and
would
no
love to
support.
learn it, but one to 3 months. That's what I saw.
Okay, try 2 years. It's so hard. It's taken me a very long time, and I still can barely do it. It's really tough because it's so different from what your I mean, your body is, used to standing up this way, and
Yeah,
now it has to completely learn, these motor skills in a completely different way, it much harder than it looks. So I think you're right. There is for many things, there's a learning curve where there's kind of a trick, but for things where there just isn't a trick, you just have to get stronger. It takes much like so. For example, I think exercise in general. Like people think, oh, I'm going to get a 6 pack abs this summer.
yeah.
No, you're not. Right? Like depending on how much weight you have to lose, is going to take a long time, right? Like or you hear this all the time. People say, I don't want to go to the gym because I don't want to get too bulky. Yeah,
Yeah.
don't worry about it. You're not going to get too bulky. It's not going to happen because it takes a long time.
Yeah. First, go to the gym, and then we
Yeah,
talk about it.
exactly.
Near, fantastic. Just at the end of this conversation, I was curious about what are your main interest in this moment, apart from expectation, studying expectation, working on your new book? Is it anything else that you are planning, working on, that you're really passionate about in this moment?
Yeah, so I think academically, research wise, I've been digging deep into placebos and expectation effects. It's really fascinating. I'm trying to crack the code kind of on can we turn on placebos like a switch? I think that would be amazing. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that. If anybody has any
Mm.
leads or resources, please reach out to me. But then personally, my daughter is 14 and she's going to leave the house for college in a few short years, and it's already killing me. I'm going to start crying here if I talk
Wow.
about this too much, but. So I'm really trying to maximize the time I have with her because pretty soon she's going to be off to college. So that's what I'm going to be focused on the next few years. And I've still got my business, and I work with a lot of companies to try and make their products more habit forming, but for good, right? So healthcare and fintech and educational products. So yeah, my plate's relatively full.
Fantastic. I have 4 kids, and my
Wow.
older son is 23, I think, 23,
Mm,
24. He just got a graduation. So I went to the graduation ceremony,
mm,
and it was like a movie. Have you watched
mm.
the old Steve Martin movie, The Father of the Bride, or something like that?
Yeah,
Is
of course.
the
Classic.
it felt exactly like that. You see him on stage with graduation, and when he speaks, it's like 2 years old. You see a 2 years old, hologram, and then say, no, it's not 2 years. It's weird. It's so weird.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy.
well,
Parenting, by the way, along with marriage and handstands, I would add to things that look easy that aren't, because we only have one, and I mean, it's such a blessing that you have four. I'm jealous that you have four. That's amazing, but man, they keep changing on you, right? Like as soon as you think you figure them out, now they change, and you've got to adapt to that.
I hope Sam Altman at OpenAI will launch like parent GPT or something like that, so that every time you just click the button, when they say something weird, you click the button and you get the right answer, something like that.
It interprets for you
Dear.
what they actually meant. It'll say it in a polite way.
Exactly, exactly. Dear, well, such a pleasure to chat with you, and let's keep in touch. Good luck for everything.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.